Hi, how's it going? I feel like I should have a pumpkin spice latte set up here. It's like as soon as October 1st hit, the weather here in Portland changed completely. Everything just feels really different. I have a Jeep that my kids love, and it has a convertible top. And tomorrow I'm going to go get the regular roof put on it, right? So it's like that time of year, everything's changing. No pumpkin spice latte, but maybe next time. Um, I'm not going to try to do this. I'm not going to try to connect this to LLM visibility. I was thinking like maybe there's a connection there, but I'm not going to try. I'm going to abruptly switch to talking about LLM visibility, which welcome. If you're taking a look at this, that's what I'm going to talk about today. It's like, what does this mean? How do I track it? What are the options available? It's a super, super popular topic. And it's becoming something that's more and more important. We've had more clients asking about it over this year. A lot of our inbound is asking about that. So I wanted to share how we think about tracking LLM visibility, what LLM visibility even means. And I also want to talk about like, can you get started with it on your own? Or are there some, inexpensive software tools that you can use even to start tracking this stuff? If you, just want to kind of take a look and understand it a bit better. So let's talk about what I mean by LLM visibility first. We know that Google is a thing and drives a lot of clicks for most people, right? Whether it's branded or unbranded terms. And then we also all know about ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and the fact that the volume of searches that are happening on those platforms has increased dramatically. And the question then becomes, as marketers, like, are we visible on these really important new channels wherever they come up, whether it's TikTok or whether it's, Blue Sky or whether it's email is cool again or whatever it is. And here's this new channel that we want to be visible for when people are putting in these really high intent, very specific queries, and they're asking LLMs, where do I find accounting software? How do I do, how do I reconcile my books? How do I do whatever? So we want to be visible in those responses. And when you ask ChatGPT a question, it's going to give you some responses, some citations, and we want to be visible there. We want our message to be visible there. And it's also true about Google AI reviews and all this other stuff. Okay. So that's just saying stuff we all already know. Then the next thing to keep in mind is visibility in LLMs is really helpful because, first of all, there's value to just getting the impression. But secondly, a lot of those people, or some set of, maybe not a lot, but some subset of those people are going to click through to your site to learn more about that topic, to learn more about your product and how you can help them. And usually clicks from LLMs are much higher intent than clicks from other, from sort of tradition, let's call it traditional search. It really hasn't been around long enough to be a tradition, but let's talk about it as if it were traditional search. And so that traffic from LLMs, there's less of it, but it tends to convert at pretty high rates. We see anywhere between 3 times, 6 times, 10 times the rate that organic search is from. So that's the motivation here, is people are in LLMs. There's a lot of searches happening there. It's still a small fraction of organic Google search, but we want to be there and we want to be answering people's questions and we want our information to be helpful to them. And then we want some fraction of those people to click through the site and ultimately go through and be interested in our product. Okay, so that's the motivation. So then the next question is, how do we measure whether we are accomplishing that objective? Are we accomplishing our LLM visibility? So I'm going to show you a spreadsheet. Shouldn't be surprising to anybody who knows me that I'm going to show you a spreadsheet. Let's get this working. Let's see. Okay, share screen. So this is the ércule topic strategy template. And there's a lot of stuff in here that we talk about with our clients. But we are topic oriented. We think about topics rather than keywords. Keywords are an important part of topics, but we think about topics rather than keywords. And so one of the things that we work with our clients to do is figure out what is the correct set of topics. And then we kind of go through there and pull a bunch of data for all of these topics. And you can see a lot of different columns here. And like, this is an example of a topic strategy. Let me pull up other ones as well. They all look very similar. Let's do this one. This one is a little bit simpler, a little less data here, and we can kind of take a look. Let's share this tab instead. Okay, cool. So the first thing here, as I said, you can see is topics. The next column over is notes. We don't care about that. But then there's LLM visibility. And here's what we mean by LLM visibility. We mean, what is the percentage of times when somebody asks about this topic in an LLM, asks ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whatever about this topic, what is the percentage of the time that we show up that our brand is mentioned? And so one of the things you can see here, I'm going to hide this notes column just so it's a little bit cleaner, is you can see, oh, in this particular case, it's 33% of the time. For context engineering, it's 35% of the time, whatever it is. And so what that's telling you is, if I go to a bunch of agents, a bunch of LLMs, and I ask about context engineering, this particular brand, your brand, our client's brand, whoever it brand we're dealing with in a spreadsheet, is going to show up approximately 1 out of 3 times. Now, there are a bunch of caveats to this, but this is an important leading indicator for whether you're going to ultimately be able to get clicks and whether you're influencing whether you're showing up. There are a bunch of caveats to this. So one is LLMs are not deterministic, which means that the answers they give are not the same every time. And so this percentage is going to fluctuate. It's going to fluctuate from month to month anyway, which you would expect on Google search too. So there's that part. There's also other sort of data things that we need to be thoughtful about. So if I go in here and I look at why, do I think our brand, whoops, that's not the right cell. What's the data that we're working off of here? Well, we always have a kind of little preview here in our template. And we say, okay, well, what are the actual things that are in here? Okay, well, best context engineering tools. Great. That was one of the queries that we issued to the LLM. So we went to a bunch of LLMs and we issued this query and we said, tell me about the best context engineering tools. Here are the responses, previews of the responses that it came up with. And then that percentage in column C is what percentage of those responses mention our brand. But it's very easy to get good queries, and also very easy to get not great queries. So like context engineering pricing might be great. Context engineering solutions might be great. But let's look at the top here and see, what is social engineering in the context of information security? That's not what we meant. So we've got to think about what the actual topics are, what the correct queries are, and then we can look at all of our responses here. So when we do it, we catalog all the responses, and that's really helpful to see, and it's something helpful to see over time. So you can see for document retrieval, I've got responses from GPT. Okay, here's what happened when I put this in. Now, there are lots of other important caveats here, but that is one, is what are the correct terms to use in here? Should these queries should there be way more of them and much longer tail? Should they have personas attached to them? All of those things are possible. And when you start paying real money, like for software, like you use Profound, which is very popular, or AirOps, or Peak, or Scrunch AI, or any of these folks, you might get some more of this data. But this is the basic theory, is that we have these queries in here, we're looking for them, we can make them very complicated, we can add more, but we want to pay attention to what's actually being brought out. What we also do is, for us, an important thing we do with clients is help them figure out what the FAQs that people have about these topics are in the first place. So I showed you some things that were obviously off. And you can also see in that query source column, in column C, you can see some of the other sources that we use to figure out what we think the prompt should be or the question should be that we ask all of the individual LLMs. So we might just use the topic itself. We might use questions from SEMrush that people are asking on search, and then use those and put those into the LLM as one of the questions we're asking to roll up to that percentage. We might also use other ways. We have this thing called the brand matrix. We might also go to ChatGPT and say, what are the follow-up questions that you expect somebody to have for this topic? So these are all things. So that's a thing to be aware of when we are looking at this. Whoops. Where did it go? I'm sorry, I lost it. That's a thing to be aware of when we're looking at this topic strategy. Okay, so that's one, is like what's in these topics. And it's very similar to what you would have done using keyword research. And then you can see over on the right, there are there's data from Google search on this, but all of these things you can take together. And so how do you get started monitoring this? Pick your topics. You still have to have a topic strategy. Go into that, figure out some questions that people are asking. And then if you want, you can go to these LLMs and start asking them about those topics and seeing if you're mentioned. And that can be a really quick way to get started with this. And if you haven't thought about this, it can be very enlightening to see what brands they do mention, what they do talk about. So then the other thing that we often look at with clients is what we call, we don't have a name for this actually. So we don't call it anything. It's just the LLM visibility report. And what this does, I'm going to share my screen with you. Hold on one second. Is shows you, hopefully you can see it now. It shows you, no, you can't. Huh. Okay, yes you can. Great. It shows you what does competitor visibility look like. So I've hidden that row. There's a row here with a bunch of example competitors here, which I've hidden. But you can see like, oh, this competitor is 33%, 35%. This competitor is really well known for all of these topics, or actually not really well. This is still pretty low, but is known. And I bet you could guess, given these topics, who that might be, or one of the companies that might be. And then we've got other ones here. So that's the other part of the equation, is how are competitors doing. And then the last two things that you really want to pay attention to are citations, who is getting cited, and also just like sentiment analysis can be useful too. And there are lots of tools that can do this. I'm going to show you real quick as the last thing for this. I'm going to show you, we use this tool called Scrunch AI. I'm going to show you what it looks like for ércule.co. So I put in a bunch of queries for us that I think people, who are in our ICP might be looking for. And, where do those people go? Well, here's the list of citations. And there's, a bunch of sites, including us and draft.dev, who are great, excellent, other sort of technical writing agency. And here's us. We're getting cited for some of the prompts that we put in. Some of them are branded, so that makes sense that we ourselves would get cited. But then you can see some of the other ones here. So like, LinkedIn. There are answers to questions that people are asking about us on LinkedIn. There are answers on semrush.com. There are answers on a bunch of other sites. So what you definitely want to do, and you can do this by, let me just try sharing the screen again. Your browser has lost connection to your screen share audio. Well, maybe it's fine. There's no audio there. What you can use this to do is understand, okay, what are the sites that are also influencing? Now, one of the things that's happened lately is that Reddit, which was very popular and influential at one point, has become less influential. But often we'll see Wikipedia in here. We'll see lots of other domains in here. But this is a good thing to be aware of, because sometimes there will be a list out there, top 10 X tools that you're not on. Can we get on there? Can we publish our own top X tools? Can we, what's going on? So that's really worth looking at. And again, you can start to get a little bit of that data by just going to LLMs and issuing your queries, picking your topics first, issuing your queries, and then getting responses. So this is important to look at. I'm not going to talk too much about sentiment analysis right now, but that's another angle that people often use. Like, are the mentions saying good things? Are they saying bad things? Do they match our messaging and positioning? It's a whole other question. And LLMs are very useful as a tool for understanding what people think about you, because they're kind of unvarnished in that way. So that is, I think that's it for today. Like, I just wanted to talk about what LLM visibility is, what it looks like, some simple ways that you can measure it. And the simple ways you can measure it, and I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen, are just going to LLMs and looking, if you're not doing that now, before you pay for a software tool, before you go out and hire somebody to help. And if you haven't looked, just go look and see what's being cited, see what's happening for your key topics. It's where you need a topic strategy. You don't just want to put in queries at random, but for your key topics, who gets mentioned, who doesn't. And then as you're able to get more sophisticated, you can start to bring things into a spreadsheet. And then you can start to think about using tools. And there's so many tools out there, but those are some of the ones that are really popular right now are Aerops and Profound and Scrunch. And there's a bunch of other ones too that you can check out. But this is an important piece to look at because more and more traffic is going to come from these LLMs, and certainly lots of influence and high intent influence and very specific influence is going to come from these. So yeah, that's how you get started with tracking your LLM visibility. Thanks for checking this out. Let me know if you have any questions, and happy Halloween. Just kidding, I got a few more weeks before I need to start saying that. Like 2 or 3, I guess. Bye.